and welcome to the True North Show. I'm your host, Megan North, and I'd firstly like to thank our sponsors of the show, Quantum Awakening, Beth Lewis, Anne C. Clark, and our amazing guest who paid to be featured on this episode. Now today, I'm joined by an incredible man who I've known for quite a long period of time now. In fact, he interviewed me many years ago when I was still working in corporate HR, and we've been connected ever since. Jay Kattel is the founder of LUME Partners, with a mission to help companies achieve their full potential. With 20 years of experience in small, medium and large organisations across private and public sectors, Jay specialises in business transformations. Having grown up in 4 countries, speaking 4 languages and attending 10 schools, Jay brings a unique ability to see problems from multiple perspectives and deliver practical, adoptable solutions with an open mind. His experience working in these organisations range from listing on the Australian Stock Exchange, redesigning processes to improve efficiency, increasing training revenue, and remodelling talent acquisition functions, as well as holding a director role with a very large merger in the New South Wales government. Jay also has experience in business analysis and project management, having led numerous projects across IT, audit, risk and compliance, and service management with a PMO. Outside Jay's professional experience, he's married and has 2 beautiful kids. He enjoys traveling, adventure sports, and helping people ascend and grow to the best version of themselves. Welcome to the show, Jay. I'm super excited that you're here with me today.
So am I. I'm really looking forward to having a chat.
Great. And so how does it feel hearing me read your bio? What goes through your mind when you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, that's everything that I do?
You sort of pinch yourself. No, it's great. I mean, it's a summary, but it's great, for someone else to read it and sort of play it back to. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Because you don't often read your own bio, so.
No, and most people in Australia anyway tend to be pretty humble. So when someone reads a bio like that back to you, you're like, oh, really? Can you stop now?
I know, isn't it interesting how us here in Australia, we really do have that tall poppy syndrome? Isn't it interesting?
So bad, yeah.
I wonder why. I don't know what it is from a cultural point of view.
I don't know. We tend to shoot down people who are doing quite well, and it's something that we do need to change. We need to be more encouraging and supporting as a nation. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so before we dive in, are you able to share with us why the company is called LUME Partners?
Yeah, look, ever since I was a kid, I've had a fascination with the universe and light. So, I've always looked up at the night sky. I've always looked at, the star system, the solar system, and LUME is short for lumen, and in Latin means source of light. So for me, like with the work sort of that I do or my associates do within the company, quite often when you don't shine a light on something, you tend to forget about it. And if you forget about it for long enough, it's the thing that causes you problems. So I don't know, for me, it just spoke to who I am, what my interests are, and the things that I'm good at. So that's why Lumen. The short for LUME is short for lumen.
Right. I love that. I think that's amazing. And actually, I definitely, from knowing you, I know that is definitely one of your gifts is you have a beautiful ability to be able to look at things at a different perspective and then shine that light on someone else who may not be looking at themselves or looking at a situation in the way that it needs to be looked at.
Yeah. And also, like, I've been sometimes fortunate, but also unfortunate at the same time when you've, grown up in so many places around the world, you're able to see a problem from multiple different perspectives. So you're able to see, how does this going to land with someone else? Is there something that's missing? Have we considered all perspectives? Because like one of the things I've learned from a really young kid is like we sort of had a nomadic life growing up. So we never really settled anywhere. So quite like we'd move countries or schools quite often. And I remember one 12-month period, we moved three different countries, and I went to three different schools. So quite often you sort of, when you go into a new environment, the thing is you sort of sit back, you sort of, watch how things play out, who's dominating, who's not dominating, how does that society work, where are the problems, and how am I going to fit in and how am I going to make this work? So I think that whole shining the light analogy, you sort of sit back and watch how things play out. Okay, so I see how this stuff works. Okay, yeah, that's the dominant player. That's not the dominant player. That's, so for me, that just speaks to the name of why LUME is LUME.
And why did you move, why did you grow up in a nomadic family? What was going on that made you move and have to change countries?
I think it's just parents, we were being born in Nepal, we moved to the Philippines. We lived in a farm in the Philippines, of all places. We didn't live in Manila. It was like literally 2 hours from Manila. It was literally in a university farm. And even then we moved, I think we were there for like roughly around 3 years. It was three different houses. But luckily we only had the one school because there was only one school that we could go to. So my parents went there because mum had got a scholarship to do a master's in agribusiness management. And then dad also thought, hey, might as well go get a PhD because like education is big in his family. So, and then they decided to just take us with them to the Philippines because normally when the parents in Nepal, at that time, when they used to go study, they used to leave their kids behind with their grandparents or their uncles or aunties in Nepal. But on my dad's side of the family, no one lived in Nepal. Everyone was in the US. So we all decided to go there as a family for 3 years, and then we came back. And then once we came back, the education standards in Nepal to the education standards in Philippines are quite different. Right. So I'd gotten used to studying in the Philippines. So I think I was in grade 4. I knew my 4 times table. I remember going to class in Nepal and the teacher asking me, to do algebra. And I'm like, dude, numbers and letters don't go together. What are you trying to tell? And then, but again, like I struggled in school in Nepal because it was, again, I had to pick up Nepalese. I'd already forgotten Nepalese. I didn't know how to read or write anymore. So I went to my dad and I said, hey, we got to go move somewhere else because I'm going to struggle here. So, I used to get beaten up by the teacher because that was normal back then, and it just wasn't a nice experience. So we migrated, and dad said, look, we'd put in for the US. We're already in the process for the US. And dad said, look, we'll go to the US if that comes first. Or otherwise, he put into New Zealand and Australia with a view that if we came down to the Southern Hemisphere, like we'd always end up in Australia. And then the New Zealand thing got approved straight away. We moved to New Zealand for 4 years, with a view, and then, getting the citizenship and then eventually ending up in Australia, which is where we always wanted to be. Right. If we're going to settle in this part of the world.
Yeah. And I love how you talk about sitting back and having and just sort of taking in the perspective of everybody and sort of watching and learning, because that is one of the skills that I think people can, I think, in some situations get better at, because often when you sit back and you listen, you really learn about a situation, where people are coming from. I love the fact that the same letters to spell listen is the same letters to spell silent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what's like the one of the most underrated skills for leaders or business owners, in this day and age. Quite often when you get a new leader in a business or a company and they go in, the first thing that they want to do is they want to, turn everything upside down without really understanding, why things are the way they are. Because I think, if you take the time to understand why things are the way they are, you'll start to understand, well, they might have already tried what you're thinking is right for the organization and it didn't work. Or, so I think that's one of the most underrated skill, we don't use enough in humanity today. We're so interested in putting our own point of views across. We don't take the time to listen to others, and we always think we're right. But really, if you just take a bit of a step back and just watch how things play out, man, it can be so enriching. And then whatever you think is the right thing, you can do things a lot quicker as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's always that people are listening to respond, not actually listening to take it in and to understand.
No, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I love that analogy too, in the sense of, I'm sure you've seen it before, that you're standing in front of me and I'm looking down, and to me the number 6 is a 6, but
yep,
to you it's a 9.
yeah,
And
absolutely,
so it's a different perspective. It's not wrong. You're not wrong and I'm not wrong, or neither of us are right.
yep.
In where we're standing at that time, that's the perspective that we have.
I love that. I love that. I haven't heard that one before, but I love
Oh,
it.
haven't you?
No, no, no.
Oh, I'll have to share with you the meme, because I love it, because it's a really visual representation of
Yep,
different perspectives where no one is actually right or wrong, or you're both right in a sense.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah. But we're so keen on just being right, we ignore the other perspective.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So, LUME Partners is a relatively new venture for you, and
yep,
you are working in the space that you've worked in for a long period of time, over
yep.
20 years. So, what was the pivotal moment for you? Like, why did you choose to step out of working for someone and doing something for yourself? What was going on for you at the time that you made this decision?
So I think Megan, this has been a very long decision for me. So I always knew I was gonna make this decision, but I felt like in the field that I'm in, I wanted to make sure that people valued my experience. People were, I was going to be someone who they could trust based on my experience. So I felt
Mm,
like I needed to build this toolkit to a point where I could then break free and, make this attempt to go out on my own and do it successfully, or knowing that, full well that it is going to take 5 years. So I think, yeah, so it's always been a long-term commitment. I mean, really what I wanted to do when I finished school was I actually wanted to pick up a trade. I actually wanted to be an electrician, but my
oh,
dad, my dad said no because again they value education. They're like, you must go to uni, get a degree, and then if you want to be an electrician, you can go be an electrician. I'm like, hang on, so you want me to go to uni for 3 years, pick up what 40 grand in debt, whatever it was back then, and then start on 250 bucks a week? Nah, I'm good. So if you want me to go to uni, I'll go to uni, but I'll make the most of what I enjoy doing. So yeah, and then that's what it's been. But I think look, I probably wanted to go out on my own probably about a good 10 years ago, because
mm,
I just thought, there's got to be more to life than just working for someone. And
mm,
because of the nomadic life that I've had, where I've had a lot of change, I actually love going and solving lots of problems. So I don't actually enjoy sitting in one place for 3, 4, 5 years. And then even if I do, like where I've done it in my career, like I've always had problems to solve within that organization. So lots of different things to keep me engaged. And,
yeah,
so that's what motivates me. I love meeting new people, solving problems, helping people solve problems and things like that. So that was always, you know, um, at the back of my mind. So I actually, before the last job I had, which was the CPO at GYG, I was a GM within Coates Hire, and that's the GM job at Coates was probably the best job I've ever had in my life.
mm,
I loved it. I loved, I loved my boss. I loved the CEO. I loved the company, and it gave me a lot of autonomy. But I got to the point where, again, I don't like to sit on my hands for too long,
mm,
and so I was thinking of where to go next, and then the GYG opportunity sort of came about. Now, the GYG opportunity for me was always, something that I hadn't done before. I'd never helped list an Australian business to the ASX, so I thought, what a great opportunity. Now, when we initially had the conversation, it was, they were going to list a lot later than I thought they were going to list. So when I was, and once I'd done the listing, and then I'd helped the list, and I got that in my belt, I sort of thought, like, what is the most important thing in my life? Like, what did I not have as a child that I want to give to my children? And that was time. Like for me,
mm.
and I could see having a big job like that, the impact that it was having on my family. And I thought I was okay. I thought I was okay to say, for my wife to be the prominent, parent for my kids,
Mhm.
but I wasn't. And then I was
Mm.
struggling with that. So, I think a couple of moments last year, I sat down and I'm like, hang on, my dad passed away when he was 52. and I'm not that far from 52. So I was like, well, like, do I really want to stay and with this life and not be there for, for my children? Because my children and my wife they're like the most important thing in my life. Um, so I made the decision to say, you know what? I don't care about money. I
Mm.
don't, we all need money. Yes, we all need, so, but I just sat down and, I had this conversation with my wife. I said, man, all we do is just consume, 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 consume. I said, how much more do we need? Let's just be content with what we have right now. And,
Mm.
we're in a fortunate position. I am going to take a bit of a break and I am going to go out on my own because,
Mm.
I want my life to be centered around what I want. I don't want to feel like I owe anyone anything.
Yeah.
I want to be able to give back to the causes that I want to give back to. I want to be able to invest in the relationships I want to invest in. I want to
Mm.
have time to do the sort of things I want to do, and work with the people that I want to work with, because I wanted to do, that choice to be up to me and not no one else.
Yeah.
And then, and I think, once you get to the C-suite, you sort of look for people around you, and you sort of think, is that really the life that I want? And I was like, no, I don't want
Mm.
this life.
Yeah.
I don't want this life, and I don't need to keep consuming, and I don't need to keep, wanting more and more. I just learned to be really content. But also, like with having the childhood that I had, I think because I'd been go, 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 go for such a long time, I needed time to sort of unpack my own childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone is shaped by their childhood trauma. And
Mm.
I think if you want to learn and grow, you need to actually take some time out, take a breather, and really unpack, well, why am I the person I am? Why do I behave the way I behave? Why do I have this relationship? And, one of the things I had to learn to shake was really around the people pleasing thing. Because, whenever you move around to different environments, in order for you to fit in, like that's just a strong suit that I built for myself. So, like, very rarely did I say no. I just,
Really?
I just said, no worries. You want to do that? No worries. That's, and so I'd never put myself first for anything. So, like, my whole life had been around servicing other people's needs rather than my own needs. So I thought, no, you know what? Enough of that. It's time to figure out what's more important for me, and do things that's important for me, and not to really care what others think of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm.
think so that's what happened last year. So it was like, like around mid-year after the listing, I sort of then just took stock of everything. And I'm like, and, ever since I made that decision, I could see the impact it's had on my family. I could see the impact it's had on my kids. Like, my kids have accelerated in things that they love, their hobbies, and they always, like every parent likes to think that their kid's gifted. And every kid is gifted in their own unique way for the things
Yep.
that they love to do. But like me being there, me being able to devote the time to them, but has made like the world of difference for our family.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
and
And
then that's for me when I think about success quite often. Like, when you work for these big companies, people are so driven by just financial success. Yes, financial success is important because it's what keeps that business sustainable.
Mhm.
It's what keeps, the business being able to employ people and things like that. But I think there are other factors that round out the company, but also round out individuals. And, I implore people to think, more than just money.
Yeah, yeah. And so was it a really big decision for you to step away and do your own thing? Or do you think that over the 10-year period when it was sort of building that you just got to that point where it's like, I've got no other choice, but this is what I need to do?
I think it's a combination.
Hmm.
It was a combination. So, I'd been building this for so long. Like, I use this analogy. If there was an extraterrestrial craft with an extraterrestrial watching over my life every single day, and this is when I was working for others, and it watched me. So it would watch me live in a box. So, house is a box. Then it'd watch me get into another box, which was a car. Then it'd watch me get into another box, which was a train. Then it'd watch me get into another box, which was wherever I'd worked at. and spend whatever 8, 10, however many hours, and then go back into a box to a box to a box. So I was like, man, there's got to be more to life than just boxes. So this ET will probably look at me and go, what does this guy do in these boxes? Like, what's so important in these boxes? Like, so where's the meaning in all of this? So I think, and then so that's been eating away at me for probably since, I don't know, for 15 years. So
Yeah.
that been in, so what do you do? And then last year again, it was the anniversary of my dad's death, and then I was sort of reflecting that, man, he was 52. I'm not that from 52. And I said this to you already. I'm like, I have to make a change. I have to make a change, and and I've got to do it now. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. Yes, I'm not going to know what's going to happen next, and I've never done this before. But guess what? Like, I'll learn. And I'm sure I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I love that you've shared that so deeply, because I think one of the things that people struggle with, particularly when you work in corporate, I mean, I know because I was in corporate for a long time,
Yeah.
it's that moment that you get to where you just think, okay, yeah, we all need to earn money because we need to pay our bills,
Yeah.
but as you said, like, how much do you actually need? And also, if I'm not happy and I'm going into a job that I actually don't like, then what is the change that I can make within myself? And I think that one of the things that, for you, I love that you've shared that it's been a journey for you over 10 years. Like, you don't just make this. Some people may make the decision quickly. I know myself, it took me a little while to make that decision of stepping out. But I remember when I left the organisation that you and I had met, um, was more than 4 years ago when I left. But I remember one of the senior execs that I supported at the time, he said, "You are so brave. I can't believe that you're just leaving here and that you're just going to do your own thing." And I said, I just had this innate trust that I just knew it would work out.
Yeah.
The
And it just takes
alternative
time.
was to stay.
Yeah, 100%. And it takes time. I remember I had the same conversation with like a couple of the execs. They're like, are you serious? Because, we like before listing, obviously that, there's a lot of money involved, there's options and things like that. And we're talking, like life-changing money. But
Yeah.
then I had to weigh up. I'm like, okay, so that stuff takes time to vest, and it's never a guarantee either. So I'm like, am I prepared to lose 5 years of my life? Um, and, not go out on my own and, do the thing that I've always wanted to do.
Mm.
You know, and now for me, my kids are at the age, that I feel like it's like the most formative years of their life. Like they're going into teens soon. So I felt like, that was way more important for me than anything else. So and it was just, in the end, it was an easy decision.
Yeah.
But, in the end, it was an easy decision, but it took time. But also it was like around, well, if I'm going to go out on my own and people want to engage me and buy my services, they'd want to know that, yes, I'd been to all these different places, I'd done some great experiences. So I felt like, I'm like, okay, that's the last thing I felt like I needed to tick to say, yep, I feel like I've got, enough experience to go out and sell myself for people to want to work with me. And so once I did that, I was like, yeah, got
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. And I feel like it's a bit of a combo, isn't it, of courage and confidence. Like, it's just holding on, going, you know what? I trust that I'm
Yeah.
going to be okay. So I've just got to make the step.
Yeah, and also like no, you got other options. Like I think if you are precious about how you generate income, and I think like I always tell people, when you go out on your own, like there's a couple of ways to go out on your own. But for me, I think if you do it sustainably, like you can have a plan to go out on your own. So
Mhm.
like especially if you've got a family, like you
Yeah.
want to make sure financially they're going to be covered. Like, and I
Mhm.
always tell people, no, go in it and know that if you're not going to make a single cent in the first 2 years, that you're still going to be okay. And if you do need to make money, like we're so lucky we live in a country like, in the West, like somewhere like Australia, where like if I need to go drive an Uber, I'll drive an Uber. I don't care. Like, there's no ego. Like if I need to go out and clean couches to feed my family, I'll do that. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I knew that at the back of my head, like while I'm building this business, while I build the clientele, while I build, if I need to go stack shelves at Woolies I'll do it. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it was ultimately gonna be able to give me the life I wanted.
Yeah. And I know the first couple of years for me, I did some HR consulting because I just knew that I could earn a little bit of extra money and it would just helping me through the time. So, you make those choices, don't you?
Yeah, and you have to be comfortable with those choices because I remember again, a few of the execs said to me, I can't believe you're letting this go. Like, do you have a trust fund? I said, mate, I don't have a trust fund. I don't have anywhere near as much money as I understand you to have, but it's not about that. I think we've got enough to make ends meet for a little bit.
Yep.
But I just want the freedom and flexibility to go out on my own and be there for my kids.
Yeah. And isn't it the best when you can decide what clients you want to work with, who you want to work with, when you want to work? Like my diary's always blocked on a Friday because I don't want to. Who wants to work on a Friday? I don't want to work on a Friday.
Yeah, and I think and I think it's also knowing, okay, so enable for you to live the life that you want. Like, again, what is that number? I don't know. Ever since I was a kid, like I see numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So numbers tell me. So like I can see the future with numbers. So numbers have played a really prominent role in my life, right?
Okay.
So I knew, like, things like at 17, I knew where I was going to be at 32, and it was based on numbers. And then, I knew I was going to make this decision based on what my age was going to be. It was based on a number. I know what my next number must. I don't know. Like, I see numbers.
Wow.
So for me, going back to the numbers thing, it was always like, okay, so numerically, what's the number that's going to support you to live the life that you want? Like, what's the number that's going to help pay your bills? What's the numbers that's going to, help, if you've got kids and a family, that's going to help support the kids and the family, so I know what that number is, and based off that number, you sort of design your life around that number. And I don't want, and I don't need exorbitant amounts, I just need enough. And that's how I've been able to that's how I'm starting to engineer my life. It's all numbers.
Wow. I didn't know that about you. That's amazing. We'll have to talk more about that.
Yeah. And look, and I think, and then that's why, because I've always been such a numbers guy, like, and when I work with, businesses, that's one thing, like, I talk to the senior execs or numbers. I said, don't worry about the fuddy-duddy numbers that you fudge, but do you literally understand every dollar that comes in and out of your business? Where is money spent? How is money spent? Where do you, invest wisely? You got to understand all that to be able to, run an effective business. So, so I think, again, going down the path I have, because I'm such a numbers guy. But if you talk to me about finance terminology around, yes, I understand what EBIT is, but then there's this, like, I don't, you don't need to understand all that. But like, I think if you understand numbers at its core, and so I think, again, going out on my own, like, the fact that I wanted to work for myself and I was a numbers guy, it just fitted really nicely to do the things that I've been lucky to do in the last nearly a year now.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. All right, so let's have a little break. We'll have to have a little break. I want to hear from our sponsors. And coming back to the conversation, I'd love to talk to you about mental health and wellbeing and what sort of things you do in relation to that. So we'll hear from the sponsors and we'll be back shortly. Thanks, Jay. welcome back. Hi, Jay. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking with me.
I feel like I need to make an appointment with one of those coaches, with one of your sponsors. I'm like, I'd love to spend a bit of time with them.
Definitely, definitely. So, can we talk a little bit about mental health and well-being? So, how did you look after your mental health and well-being while you're in corporate? And then has it changed now that you're working for yourself and you're doing what you love?
Look, I've always been fairly active, so I've always found the time to, exercise. So I try and exercise at least 3, 4 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
But as you get old, like I think your body starts to behave and act in a different way. So, my wife's, who's a yoga teacher, who's a Pilates teacher, and also the physio, have now given me like a 15-minute routine that I have to do every day. It's almost like starting like a lawnmower, It's like, yeah. So every morning, one of the first things I do is I do this 15-minute practice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of stretch, mobility, and then I'll probably do some weight training. But also, it's also finding the time, because I think there's the exercise and being active bit, but also stimulating the mind with the sort of things that you want to do. And as I've gotten older, like I've always been a spiritual person. I haven't been religious, but I've been very spiritual. So it's often finding the time to connect with the sort of things, and seeking answers that I want answers to. So, and also making time to do the experiences and things that I've always wanted to do. So so I'll do, like I've got a reputation for doing crazy things out of the blue. So I've known for just like one day, I think I've done it a few times over the last couple of years, or more than a few times, where I'll wake up in the morning, I'll tell my wife, I'm like, listen, I'm going to go for a walk. I'll see you in the evening. So I'll literally walk for like 45K somewhere.
Right.
I had a bucket list that I wanted to do, which was I wanted to walk to North Sydney from my house one day. So and I did that. So I wanted to go to base camp in Everest. I did that. So, it's about doing those things and experiences that you want to do. And it's also about connecting to nature. Like I love going down to the Royal National Park. We're not too far from there. So they're the things that, I sort of do to try and, keep my mental health in check. But like, I think it's something that you always need to work through, because, we all face things in life that we always go through. So it's always being about being very open-minded about having conversations with people who are discussing it. So if I feel like I'm going through something, I don't say, I've learned not to suffer in silence. I've got people who I can connect with to have those conversations. I might go meet up with, certain people if I'm going through some stuff. So I think it's all those things combined. Now, has it changed all too much from when I was in corporate to now? Yeah, I think slightly. Now I just have a bit more time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now, because when you're working in corporate, you can't say on a Friday, oh, you know what, I'm going to go for a 45K walk on Friday, because, the things that you need to do for your business, you can do them at your own time. So, like I often, when the kids are in there doing their extracurricular stuff, or if the kids are asleep, I can log in and do the sort of things that I want to do. And I think, so you still end up putting the same amount of effort. But I think when you start working for yourself, you just realize how effective you can be,
Mm-hmm.
and how, like, you don't, you really get the focused time where you can punch so much stuff out. So you could probably punch out what you would in a day, in an hour, because you have no distractions, because, you're focused and doing what you need to do.
Absolutely. I had a role quite a few years ago where it was a very senior HR role for a really big organization, and I worked 3 days a week because that was the
Yep.
role. So I worked from Wednesday to Friday,
Yep.
and on the Monday, Tuesday, my boss, it was do not ever pick up an email, never pick up a phone call, all of that sort of stuff. So I was like, okay. And
Yep.
so from Wednesday to Friday, I became so effective in the work that I was doing, because on Friday afternoon, I couldn't say, oh, well, I'll just do that Monday, because I wasn't back until the Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And so it really changed the way that I worked through the day. And it's
yeah,
a little bit also with me in my business, how I don't want to work on a Friday. So it's amazing how efficient I can be in the 4 days
yeah.
um, to get the things going and finish so that I don't have to work on a Friday.
Yeah, yeah, and look, and even when I was working in corporate, I had rules where I'd block, I'd try and block, it didn't always work, but so from 3 till 5, and from up to, if I could, 10 o'clock. So those two blocks were always blocked out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And most days lunch was also blocked out.
Yep.
And then, because then that just gave you time to connect with your team, and I think we always wait for meetings to talk about things, and a lot of the time you don't need a meeting. You can often solve a problem, and you can often find out by just walking the floor. So
Yeah.
what I always used to do was I always made sure in the mornings and in the afternoons I had time where there was focus time, and B, like connection time. Because I think when you do those connections, like you could literally find out what was going on by just going out. And so I used to take people out for walks with me. I used to go out and sit at their desk and have a conversation in and you could, that half an hour conversation probably saved you from having a 3 hour meeting, because you
Yeah.
can literally, like go off script, find out what's going on and things like
Mm.
that. So I think, that like you can manage your time effectively even if you work in an organization.
Yeah.
And I think it's also really important to set boundaries as well. I think,
Mm.
and it's something, and if you don't set boundaries from the get-go, it can be tricky to wind that back.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so with the work that you do with organisations and leadership and organisational change, does mental health and wellbeing come into it with the work that you do with them?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it always gets a mention.
Mhm.
It always gets a mention, and especially when you're helping them navigate a change, and ultimately there might be some structural changes. People might have different roles. People might not want to be there, and mental health is a key topic that comes to mind, especially around how people will deal and react to the change. So,
Mhm.
like those discovery sessions quite often turn into sessions where people vent, where people talk about their mental health. And you often find, I was lucky enough in one of the organizations I worked at, they put us through mental health first aid training, and it was
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
You actually literally pick up some really good, great skills around what
Mm.
questions to ask. And you're not really there to solve their problems, but you know where to point them in the direction for, to qualified people, to direct them to get, help from qualified people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but mental health definitely, is a big, and quite often I'm seeing in organizations right now that I'm dealing with, there's high levels of uncertainty. We're in a funny period right now. There's a lot of restructures going in companies. There's a lot of people who are close to burning out. So I think more often than not, now it's really, really important around organizations and the practices they have. It's like, how do you create space so people don't burn out? You know,
Yeah.
so what sort of rules do you put in place? Do you put no meeting Fridays, or do you block out the saying no meetings in the mornings and the afternoons unless it's absolutely critical? So I think organizations can change the way they operate, and
Mm.
unfortunately, because we've got all this, it's quite easy to get to people saying, hey, I need this answer right now. So it's about thinking, can that wait tomorrow?
Yeah.
It doesn't really need to be done right now. And even when you, as the recipient of the info, like if you're working at a company, do you need to respond to that right now?
Mm.
Yeah, actions speak louder than words. How do you set up those boundaries? Because
Yeah.
literally, it's like I always say when we work, when I work with my clients, it's the key is the outcome, not the working, not the hours worked.
Yeah, yeah. And I also think too, it's interesting because I feel like that there still is some accountability on us as an individual and as a human to look after our mental health. We can't just sit back and say, my organization doesn't allow me to look after it, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's actually got to take action on it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%, and that's
Yeah.
why, go back to the boundaries.
Yes.
You've got to set the boundaries for yourself.
Yeah.
And quite often I think, like,
Mhm.
they're not even, I don't think personally they're hard conversations to have,
No.
but like quite often it just starts with a conversation to, if it is impacting your life, if it is unsustainable, just have a conversation with your manager,
Yeah.
to say, hey, look, what I'm expected to do is probably not realistic. Like, hey, can we talk about how we make this work?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and people often shy away from having those conversations.
Yeah.
And what happens is, and the manager doesn't know that, there's an issue.
Yeah.
It's like your sixth and the ninth thing, like, so, and then, this thing becomes this thing, then becomes this thing, and then it becomes unmanageable,
Yeah.
and then it really impacts your mental health. So I
Yeah.
think, we just need to start to learn how to have those conversations, when we need to have those conversations.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
you'd be surprised how open-minded people are. Because
Yeah.
no one's out there intentionally to hurt anyone. We
No.
all want. I like to think I'm an optimist. We all like to think we want to see the best in
Yeah.
others, and we want the best for others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very good point. So, as you said, that LUME Partners has been around for nearly a year now.
Yeah.
So, has the direction of where LUME Partners is going and what you thought it would be like, has it changed in the last year, or is it exactly what you thought you were going to create?
Oh, it always changes, that. It always changes. You start off with something. I think as your company ages, you start to learn around the spots you want to play in, like, and
Hmm.
who your ideal customer is. So,
Yeah.
and which customer is going to benefit most from your experience. So you tend to target those customers. So when I first started out, like, it was. I haven't even leveraged my network, my fully network just yet, but it was around, like, so out of my network, who could I go to? And you'd be surprised where you think some people are going to give you
Yep.
an entry into a door. They don't.
Yeah.
And you start to learn, like, where you thought where you could rely on people, where you could, because you've done them a favor, or you've done, like, you've had a great relationship, or whatever it is.
Hmm.
You start to quickly learn, people's true colors, because people are, like, unfortunately, when I previously said, oh, people only want the best for you, but there are also people, especially in senior roles, who literally only want you in when it benefits them. So as long as you can do them a service, like, I think, and so look, as the company is aged, like, the thing that I've learned is, okay, so what's my ideal clientele?
Hmm.
Who am I? Where can I add value, and where are they going to appreciate my feedback? Where are they going to appreciate my experience? So I think for me, like, I'm getting clearer. Like, I think so it's literally, I think I've had a conversation about this before, where it's literally for companies that have in 100 to about 2,000 employees. That's my sweet spot.
Yep.
Because I think, once you start to get, like, I can play in those big companies as well, and I have, and some of those big companies, like, for a small business to even get on as a supplier, my God, you have
Yeah.
to spend 4 days to, fill out every single paperwork that they've got, build all these policies you don't necessarily need,
Mm. Yeah.
take out these big insurances and things like that. So it's like, well, do I really want to, am I really going to get the cut through there that I need, and those big companies, they're probably going to want, like, those big consulting groups, right? And I
Mm.
think, where I feel like, your medium businesses, they're going to value people with experience, because
Yeah.
I think, and I also like, the other way I looked at it was also, I think, like, with the emergence of AI and the analysis you can do with AI now, like, I honestly believe, like, the big four, no one's got a competitive advantage with someone like a Loom now, because
Mhm.
all the enabling tools, they're there. Anyone's, you get a subscription. So when it comes to mining data, when it comes to mining insights, because, like, most of the work that those big consultancies, where the workhorses are grads anyway, right? So it's not your experienced people like your partners that do the job. And I feel like those those big companies, like, like they grow up in consultancies, so like the implementation experience is not necessarily there. So
Mm,
for me, it was like around, so how do I then position Loom to the market? And the positioning has become clearer in the last year. So it's around, if you need an implementation specialist who's been there, done that, knows there, who can guide you, but is going to roll your sleeves up and do the thing with you, then let's have a conversation.
yeah,
And then you also get clearer on like the types of people you want to have the conversation with.
yeah, yeah,
And you're, like when you're a small business, you also want to make sure that, like, when you go out and invoice a client, that they're going to pay on time. And you find when you work, like, I've done a couple of big organizations, they don't pay you on time. Like, like
mhm,
a lot of them, like, they've got quite bureaucratic processes where it takes a
mhm,
bit of time. And
yeah,
and cash flow is important.
yeah,
Again, so that's why I feel like, the sweet spot, I'm getting clearer. It's really, within that 100 to 2,000 people. It's for people that value someone who can come in and who can guide them, who's been there and done that themselves. So
mm,
they can sort of talk you through their experience. It's not theoretical, it's practical. See, I
yeah,
think so. That's where it's evolved in the last year. I think
yeah.
I'm just getting really crystal clear on who I want to work with and what sort of work that I want to do.
Yeah, okay. And I think that there's probably a piece of advice in there, isn't there, for if people are starting out, that you have this idea, but there probably needs to be a little bit of flexibility and a bit of
Absolutely.
flow in relation to where you think it's going to go to actually where you end up guided to go.
Yeah, and be open, be very open-minded, be very open-minded, but also be clear on what you want to take on versus what you don't want to take on. Like, because if you end up taking something on that you don't want to take on, it will show. Like, the client's going to be like, come on, why haven't you done what you're meant to do? Or, you will see it in your execution. So I think in the first, like, I don't think it's even in the first year. I think it's forever that you run your business. Like the way you turn up, the way you engage, how quickly you get back to people,
Yeah.
how approachable you are, the quality of work, like, the attention to detail you have in your work, all that stuff shows, and all that stuff like anchors the brand you're trying to create in the market.
Yeah, and I think I think that's the point too, right? Is that it's because you're the brand,
Yeah,
so that integrity has to be there, because otherwise the client will think, oh well, you said all of this stuff and you gave me this, but you also threw in that, and that actually wasn't very good.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then it's very easy to sort of ruin your brand on
Mm.
taking on something that actually you're not really passionate about, but you're just taking on anyway.
Yeah, and look, and it's also been interesting, learning how to quote properly. Like, and look, and the thing is, because Loom doesn't have the overheads like all the big, the companies. Obviously, like, again, the value proposition to market is like, we're able to do, if not the same, better work for you, but because we don't have the overheads, it means like we're able to partner with you and deliver much better value for you, because you don't have to pay the exorbitant amounts. And
Yeah,
so, yes, have I underquoted? Hell yeah. So I'm like learning the art of quoting. So,
yeah,
and sometimes I think I go, huh, this has actually turned out to be a lot bigger than but again, just be open to learning,
yeah.
if you've committed to something, see it through, things like
Yep.
that.
Yep, exactly. That's it. It's
Yeah.
just being flexible and just being open to all of those opportunities.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's really good. So can you believe that we've actually only got a few minutes left? I
Time
told you it would
flies.
go quickly.
Yeah, time flies, especially in a conversation with you.
I know. So I'm going to ask you the same question that I ask all of my guests before we finish our conversation. So what is one lesson or truth that you've learned on your journey that you wish you had known earlier?
This is going to be quite short for me. It's not to care what others think. Like, I think, we're so defined by perceptions of others, we limit our own beliefs around what we can do.
Mm,
And it's hard. It's easier said than done. I mean, I had to work like within that for so long to let go of so much of the trauma, but like, put the time in, and because really, like, the only conductor to your life is you. And just learn not to care what others think. And as long as you stay true to who you are and your values are, know that. So if you don't intentionally hurt anyone, if you're not out there to steal, like all those, just I think all religion, all everything is founded on those values. So as long as you live by those values, just go chase your dream. Hear what anyone else says.
Oh, I love that. What a beautiful way to end this conversation. I love it. You've really shone a light on that, Jay.
LUME.
For our audience, yes, you probably guessed that Jay and I get on and have a lot of amazing conversations. So, but
Yep.
I definitely learned a couple of new things about you today. So I love that.
Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with you and having the conversation with you.
You're
It's
so
always,
welcome.
it's like, it's a great conversation.
Yeah, it's really great. And I have no doubt that there's going to be a lot of aha moments, I think, with people listening to you as well,
Yeah.
because I love that you've been so open and you've shared a lot of things that, even in the last 12 months, how you've had to be flexible and flow and the decisions that you've made. So I think that that helps people, I think, when they're at that fork in the road of, am
Yeah.
I going to do this or not? So thank you for sharing everything.
And if people want to reach out because they want to bounce an idea, or they're at a crossroad around, if they're thinking, if I need to make a decision, reach out, and I'm happy to provide any insight I can.
Thank you. That's really generous. Thank you. So thanks, Jay. And I'd also just love to thank all of our amazing and dedicated audience, our supporters, and to my sponsors as well. And I hope that you all have an amazing, wonderful rest of the week. And I look forward to seeing you all again next week. And thank you again, Jay.
See ya.